Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's podcast. This week, we are talking to you about our favourite coaching tools. And the reason that we're doing this is we're often asked about this. And also, if we take ourselves back to when we were training to be coaches or thinking about training to be coaches, I was really curious about, so what do coaches use then? What are the best tools to be able to use? So we thought we would share just some ideas with you today.
Then the coach's toolbox is something I think when you go through your coaching training that you're really passionate about. You want a tool for everything. And of course, over time that changes. And I think as you become really experienced in coaching, you start to move away from the tools and take a much more kind of blended and natural approach to coaching, kind of integrating different tools and concepts, both covertly and overtly, like with your clients. But definitely in those early days as coaches, the tools are what you use. They are your craft. So really excited to kind of share some of our favorites with you. And I think the one that let's start with, a really basic and obvious tool is the Wheel of Life. Now, I don't use the Wheel of Life so much with my clients anymore, but it is such an easy to use, accessible, understandable tool. So very briefly, imagine a Trivial Pursuit wheel written down on paper. And you would fill this Trivial Pursuit wheel with, things that are important to you in life. So health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, whatever it might be, career that's important to you in your life. And you would score out of 10 based on how fulfilled you are against that particular topic. And what this does is it helps you have a holistic view of life right now and helps you to decide which areas of your life you need to focus on. Now, I've used this tool on myself a number of times, but instead of putting just areas of life, I complete it with my values. So I will get out my core values, which is another tool that we love, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And I complete the wheel with things like learning, growth, connection, freedom, all of the things that are important to me and what I need to be fulfilled, and score that out of 10. Every time I feel a niggle of frustration or that things just aren't quite right, that activity really helps me to ground myself. And I know that my clients sort of find it really helpful as well.
One of the good things about that tool, and probably a feature of my favorite tools, are when you can adapt them. So you talked about the Wheel of Life, you choose 8 of those key aspects of your life. You talked about using it for values. We often talk to people about using the Wheel of Life, but around emotional well-being. So what are the 8 core things that are important for you, or your must-haves for you to feel emotionally well? And we've also used it within organizations around leadership behaviors and helping them to identify those things. So it's a great goal setting tool, because when you score each of those areas, it often becomes obvious to you in a visual perspective around which of these areas do I want to invest my time in improving. The reality is they're all interconnected. So really, whichever one you start in is going to help to improve the others. So yes, Wheel of Life. And you can Google that. You'll see lots of different variations online.
Absolutely. I think another firm favorite you mentioned there about emotional well-being and emotional wellness, something we cover on the program is the like jelly baby tree. You have to kind of imagine what you have in front of you is a tree with lots of different characters and lots of different positions. Some are on a swing, some are jumping off, some are holding on, hugging the tree. And it's, it's an abstract way to kind of check in with your clients around how they're feeling in a session or how they're feeling about a particular topic. And it's a way to open up a conversation about how a client might be experiencing their world in that very moment in time. And it doesn't just have to be this particular jelly baby tree, which if you Google will come up. It's a tool from one of the coaching psychologies. But you can create your own of different characters or different shapes, and you can start to use your creativity to use different formats to be able to check in with clients around. So how, which one of these pictures do you feel represents you in relation to what we're talking about today? So that's, you like the kind of flexibility of the Wheel of Life. And I really like, tools, as I know you do, where you can get creative and you can start to create your own tools, techniques, visual aids to support you and your clients.
And I think visual tools can be really helpful for people, because it can help to silence that internal saboteur. So if they're looking at a picture and what they need to do is, pick a particular character that represents how they're feeling, but also maybe they choose one that represents how they want to feel about that, then instead they're just making a decision about which one of those am I, rather than going through all of the different, other internal dialogue that might happen for them. And I know that tool is used within counselling as well. So lots of these tools are used across different types of interventions. It's about how you use the tool, I think, that really makes the difference. And a tool that goes hand in hand with that is the feelings wheel. So that really helps people to identify the emotions they're experiencing, because a lot of people have very narrow emotional range. So if we ask people to name emotions, a lot of people will be able to name about 7 and then dry up and think. But actually, when you look at this emotions wheel, you'll see that there's probably about 60 emotions on there, and it can help you to. Susan David talks about like umbrellas of emotions. So for example, we might say, I feel sad, but actually sad is an umbrella emotion and has a number of other different types of sadness, if you like, underneath that. So helping clients to extend their emotional range, to be able to identify their emotions, and then to do work with them to help them to articulate it so that they can get those needs met. For both of us, I know, is a fundamental part of transformational coaching. And also for us as individual coaches, for us to be able to, use these tools or dip into them when we think it's useful for us, both as human beings outside of our coaching role and also as coaches ourselves.
I think that tool probably leads us nicely into the interconnections between our thoughts, our feelings, and of course the action and behaviors that we take. And this is a cognitive behavioral therapy model, but in coaching we would call it cognitive behavioral coaching, so it can be future focused and context around the goal. So we would work with that model to help a client. Perhaps your client is coming to a coaching session and they're like, I think this, I think this, I think this, I think this. So you can help them to access their other senses and experience. I hear that you think that. What are you feeling? And knowing that you're feeling that, what are you going to do about it? And you might need to work with them to help them to change the thoughts into something more productive and useful for them. So that in turn generates different emotions and different outcomes. And in many ways, tools and techniques in coaching, yes, they're there to help to facilitate change and help your clients to achieve their outcomes, but they're also there to help clients learn how to self-coach, so that as they move beyond the coaching, when your coaching relationship ends, they have these different tools and techniques to be able to use and apply to their own life. So they don't always need to come to coaching when they have like goals or challenges that they want to work through.
And I think that works really well when the coach is prepared to be transparent with the coachee about introducing tools, giving enough theoretical context so that they get it without being bored, but also being able to share that. And what I love to see then is coachees pay that forward, so they'll be able to share those things with their teams, which help to empower those team members, which stems the flow of people coming and wanting reassurance or how to do something, and instead they grow their confidence in their own capabilities.
Absolutely.
So we've talked to you a little bit about emotional intelligence. We've talked a little bit about a goal setting technique, and you mentioned values. So values elicitation is a core part of the work that we do as coaches. So we consider values to be one of the core pillars of coaching. So helping our clients understand the things that they must have either in their life as a whole, we call those core values, or perhaps in a particular area, for example, career or health or relationships. We'll have our own sets of values for those, which might overlap with our core values as well. So values elicitation is how we support our coachees to be able to identify the things they must have in that particular aspect of their life. And often when coachees are supported through that process to identify their values, lots of things fall into place for them. It gives them an understanding of where they are motivated, where they aren't motivated. It helps them to make the decisions that are right for them. And our role within those tools of identifying the values is to be free of judgment. We're like the note taker, really, but we are also helping them to delve down deeper and deeper and deeper so moving from their conscious mind and helping them to connect into their unconscious mind, which is where their values are stored.
Yeah, values. I think it's obvious we love values. We talk about it a lot on this podcast. I think it's the elicitation is just the starting point, isn't it? It's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what you can do with values. There's so many different conversations that you can facilitate. And one of the things that I really enjoy facilitating with my clients is, yes, understanding their values, but understanding the beliefs that are attached to those values and in which direction is that value taking you in your life. So I guess, for example, if you took the value of belonging, do you hold that value because creating community and being part of community is like just really inspiring and motivating for you and fills you with energy? Or do you hold that value and the direction is taking you in a place of fear, of thinking that I don't belong and therefore I need to do all of these behaviors to strive to feel as if I belong? Because those values will give you clues as to the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious around who you are and how you experience the world. And so values are, for me, like a gateway to ensuring that the direction of your values are taking you towards what you do want and how you can be fulfilled, rather than being focused and holding the energy of the thing that perhaps you're afraid of and that is taking you actually away from getting the fulfillment from that value. So, and we would do that by facilitating conversations around, the direction of those values, what's important to them and how they feel when those values are being fulfilled and how you feel when those values aren't fulfilled. So, that's just one thing that you can do with values, but there's a whole catalogue of tools and techniques that enable you to work with values with your clients.
And I think what you're describing there is like coaching isn't just tools. Like tools are one aspect of a coaching conversation, but it's really it's the pragmatic part of applying the things that people learn. So you have like the tools, but you also have what we call free coaching. So when people are on our training programs, there's certain weeks or certain parts of sessions where we say, right, okay, it's time to do some free coaching now. So draw on all the different things that you've learned together. And it's part of helping people to really start to work out what's my signature style as a coach. So on our coaching programs, we have modules which are introductions to different psychology. So we have modules that are an introduction to NLP, for example. So if we take a look at that for a moment, the things that we enjoy from NLP are language and the focus on language, the fact that we can't process a negative. So if we say, don't think of a pink elephant, you can think of the color pink, then you've got a gray elephant, you're trying to put them together. And then you realize, oh, you told me don't think about it. So helping our clients to identify how their language is serving them and where it's holding them back. But there's also an exercise, so a tool, if you like. It's a mindsets exercise, which helps people to think about concepts such as cause and effect, where you're living your life, which end of that continuum are you at? The idea of results or excuses, and you can't have both. So different things like that. And it's quite a Marmite exercise. So as with all of these tools, they're not going to work with everybody every time. You need to really have the understanding of when these tools could be useful. So if your client is feeling quite vulnerable, you're not going to choose a tool which is going to really force them to, in their mind, to move forward on something, because actually you need to do some other work with them before that may or may not become relevant for them.
Reminded me as you were talking through that of the tool, The Logical Levels of Change, which is a tool created by Robert Dilts. And again, if you Google this one, you'll get some examples of that come up. We've actually got a video of it, I think, on our YouTube channel as well. And that is a Marmite activity. I always remember training that one in on our coaching trainings. And this is one where you stand up. So it's a physical activity as much as it can be a conversational one. But there's different layers that you work through, from environment, skills and behaviors, capabilities, values, beliefs, identity, higher purpose. And the idea is that you come up with your goal and you look at how your goal fits against these different levels, these logical levels, so that when you get to the top, you're connecting your goal to your higher purpose in the world. And then you work your way back down that ladder as if you've achieved that goal. So it's a really calibrating experience of almost having achieved your goal in the here and now before you've even got started. I know both you and I experience it is really powerful, and you see shifts happen as people kind of do this particular coaching activity. And yet for some people, in the first time they use it, it can feel like, oh, I don't know if I like asking my client to stand up and move through these levels. And I guess, beyond coaching tools and techniques, I think where that brings us to is, as coaches, actually, it's about being courageous, doing things that perhaps you wouldn't do. Like, what makes a coaching conversation different are the tools, the techniques, the conversations that you facilitate. And sometimes that's going to be doing things differently than in natural conversation, because that can be what's right for your client and in service of your client and how they learn in the here and now. So, we're very open on our coaching program to people loving tools and not loving tools, because we know there's something for everybody.
Yeah. And it is really important that if you're going to use tools in your coaching practice, that it is in a do with, not a do to. And I remember when I was doing my coaching training, I was just thought, how on earth am I going to introduce this, what felt quite theoretical stuff, into real life conversation where people are coming and discussing all sorts of things. And when one of my trainers, they're both psychotherapists, but one of them said, well, the way I do it is I just say, I've got this tool, would you like to experiment with it as a way to help give you new insight or perspectives? And I was like, oh, that sounds just right. Like I could do that. And so we also encourage that lightness as well. But I know that some coaching clients definitely do not like coaching tools because they do feel that it's a do to part of it. Now, you might want to explore where that thoughts and feelings come from, or you might just ride with, right, okay, we are not using any models or tools in our coaching conversations, and that's all part of the building rapport. It's part of the contracting that you do with your clients.
I think your relationship with tools and techniques changes over time. So, both you and I have over 10 years experience coaching now, and sometimes I will bring out a tool and work it through, but actually the majority of the time I'm integrating into conversation very fluidly different parts of lots of different coaching tools and activities at any one point in time, based on the emergence of what's coming through in the conversation. So it's quite rare these days that I'll walk a client through a fixed framework or a fixed tool. But then there's those odd occasions where your client brings something, you just know that is going to be a great tool to take my client through at the moment. And often that's with that self-coaching piece in mind, knowing that that particular piece of theory or technique will be helpful to that client well beyond the coaching relationship.
And it's interesting because I think when clients know that you have all of these resources and knowledge, to hand that they can draw on, they often they want more, they want to get these different perspectives. Is that, how can they look at things in different ways? And when people are training to be coaches with us, we encourage you to, look at the models, experience the models, facilitate the models, and always be thinking about, how would I adapt this? How would I adapt this for my clients? What would I need to do with this tool in order for it to feel natural and authentic for me as well? And again, that's part of you discovering who you are as a coach and how you coach best. And for me, I love those times with clients where we co-create models or tools or exercises, because what I notice is in those moments is when the client's self-coach is really coming to the fore and the confidence is there. And then as the coach, you can sort of fade more into the background. And I really, really enjoy that. So NLP is great, emotional intelligence is great, values, goals. Transactional analysis is coaching psychology where we draw from a lot. And on our coaching program, we share 4 different tools from transactional analysis. Do you want to talk a little bit about a favorite tool from TA?
Oh, favorite tool from TA. I love the work on drivers. That for me, I remember was personally enlightening and something that I use with a lot of clients. So there are 5 core drivers that exist within all of us. So they are please others, be strong, be perfect, try hard, and hurry up. And when we are calm and centered, they are a source of strength and energy for us. But when we are stressed and under pressure, our drivers can get activated. And what happens is we almost have this internal mantra that says, I'm only okay so long as I am perfect, or I'm only okay so long as I'm being strong, or any of the other kind of driver messages. When in reality, obviously, you're okay whether you're doing that thing or not. But these are learned kind of safety behaviors that when we're feeling stressed and pressured, those scripts kind of keep us, they feel like they keep us safe, when in reality, they sort of limit us in different ways. And when you introduce this, what a client has often experienced as maybe difficult about themselves becomes normal, and it becomes accepted. And not only does it become normal and accepted, but you start to realize that you don't have to obey that driver message. You can make different choices. And it's really about helping people to recognize, when are they in automatic behaviors, and actually how do they get themselves out of those automatic behaviors, or not get into them in the first place by managing their kind of stress and pressure levels. So it's just actually, I find it a really fun tool to be able to introduce with clients to help them to access those ways. And as we said, TA is a really vast field, but that's probably one of my favorite ones from there.
Yeah. And what I love about models is the normalizing that they provide. So a lot of us as human beings can worry at times, am I normal? Am I having a normal reaction? And when you realize that there are models and you fit into these models, you can be like, oh, so I'm just normal, actually. Okay. And then I can decide, once I have that level of awareness around, where I fit into the model, what do I want to do with that? Am I happy with that? Do I want to do some change work with that? And that's where the coaching really comes into play. So I think that it's important that people understand that there's a big function around normalizing with the tools we use.
Absolutely. And I know through our coaching career, obviously we did our initial coach training, and we've gone on and just done like top ups, haven't we? Like I went and did a short TA course, done big investments in CPD as well. But, we are developing those smaller bite-sized chunks so people can just come in and take a top up of NLP or a top up of TA. And those will be available in the shop on our website very soon.
Yeah, you can check out igcompany.co.uk. There's loads of other different tools that we use. We draw on tools from Gestalt as well. I love the cycle of awareness. That's definitely one that's worth checking out. But I think we've probably given people a lot of tools. People might have been noting things down or thinking, right, I need to go back to the beginning and write some of these things down.
Kicking yourself for listening to this whilst driving now or cooking dinner.
As you said, though, so, our YouTube channel, if that's not where you're watching this now, if you're listening to the podcast, our YouTube channel is worth checking out, our In Good Company one, or come and find us in the Coaching Crowd group on Facebook.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody, and look forward to seeing you again next week.